Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here with your weekly. We're going to do, oh my goodness, my brain. Every Sunday morning, we go through the transits of the coming week, and we get the angels' advice on how to traverse those transits. So, welcome to my channel. And for those of you that are in the chat, if you wouldn't mind helping me out today, Small Wildflowers is taking Sunday fun day for herself. And if you could help me with the timestamps, I would appreciate it. For those watching this in playback, these horoscopes are based on whole sign Western astrology. So if you don't know your rising sign, you're going to want to go to one of the free birth calculators on the internet. And you just need your exact time of birth and location in order to determine that information. So let's start. Again, for those of you that might be new to the channel, we start with the sign that we are in. So happy birthday to everybody who's a Sagittarius sun. I want to welcome you here. And we'll be starting with Sagittarius rising and moving our way around the Zodiac. Welcome, Joshua. It's good to see you this morning. Good morning, Queen Leo. I don't know if you guys heard me. Small Wildflowers is taking the day off. She's going to take care of, hopefully have some fun today. But anyway, if you could just, if you don't mind helping out with the timestamps, that would be fabulous. I have clients this afternoon and I don't know when I'd be able to get to it to create the chapters. Okay, so let's talk about this week because we have a full moon in Gemini tomorrow. I have done a separate video on that. So please check that out. But today what we have is Venus in a growing conjunction to the South Node in Libra. And this will be exact on the 29th, but I think we're going to feel it all week long. So the South Node represents a point of erosion, a point of loss, a release. You know, it represents the tail end of the dragon. It's K2 is what it's called in ancient astrology. And so this week, as Venus, which represents our feelings of beauty, comfort, creating peace, involving our partnerships in Libra. We're also when we see Venus in Libra, not only is she in her rulership, she's in a place where she's coming from a more intellectual sort of viewpoint. You know, the air signs are representative of the way we think. And here, as she approaches the South Node, I think this is when she's starting to think about, am I creating win-win for myself? Am I, being authentic to my wants and my desires, or am I living in a place where I'm overly compensating to the partnerships in my life, to the people that I stand in a loving relationship with? Because I think as this week moves forward and she contemplates this, I think there's the potential that Venus starts to see how taking care of herself, and not just her physicality, but her emotional body, is supporting her relationships. I want to offer it that way. We have Mercury at 24 degrees Sagittarius, approaching the galactic center. The galactic center at 27 degrees of Sagittarius is a point where we can access the quantum fields, where we can receive information and divinely inspired solutions to things that are going on in our lives. This is a really good time to meditate, to have a conversation. I almost feel like this is a good time to remember that your guides are not sitting above you. They stand with you. So having a conversation like you would with any peer group, I think will allow you to feel a sense of empowerment as you trust the divine solutions, the inspired ideas, this feeling of ease when there's nothing that you can see in the outside world to support that ease. So this is important because on the 2nd of December, Mercury will move into Capricorn, and the energy is going to change quite a bit. I want to mention quickly that the orb is a 3 to 5 degree orb on the galactic center. So if you have any personal planets within 3 to 5 degrees of 27 degrees of Sagittarius, or even anything aspecting it, opposing it, squaring it, trining it. This is something to pay attention to, because I think you can almost, if you take some time this week to have a conversation, and I want to offer it this way: when you're having your conversation with spirit, unless it's a walking meditation, have a notepad with you, because you may have ideas or thoughts or symbols that come through, number sequences that come through, that will make sense as you move forward. Meaning, as Mercury moves into Capricorn, there may be more of a feeling of, oh, this is the direction I want to go. I also want to say this, because when Mercury is in Sagittarius, it's in its opposition of its rulership. So it's considered in detriment in some ways. Mercury wants to just get short bits of information and sort of move on. And here we are in this expansive energy of Sagittarius. So here, I think when we start to put a little awareness into, am I allowing spirit? Am I allowing source energy? Am I impatient in some way? Am I missing information in some way? Am I being too quick to move forward? We know the Sun and Mars are traveling together. They've been traveling together in Scorpio. Now they've moved into Sagittarius. And again, we feel a very different energy with Mars and the Sun and Mercury all in Sagittarius. So this is something I would pay attention to, because when Mercury moves into Capricorn, there's going to be a somberness that comes. There's going to be a sort of energy where Capricorn is saying to Mercury, are you being realistic? And the realism isn't, do you have the resources in the material world? The realistic part is, where's your belief system? Again, Mercury just moved over the galactic center in the sign of Sagittarius, which rules the connection to the angelic realm. It rules expansive beliefs. And right now, as humans are entering, into an Aquarian age, we're starting to integrate the energetic body, the vibrational body, with the human body that will empower us to be more aware of our co-creation, and then more powerful within that co-creation. So I think this is important to remember. Now, those that are not really walking in awareness, but just living their human lives, this Mercury moving into Capricorn could make for a more challenging energy with the people around you, people wanting to follow the rules, people saying, well, how are you going to do that? Is that realistic? They could appear semi-cold and even a little bit, I don't want to say judgy, but it's sort of like Mercury and Capricorn. If you're chatting with somebody and you're telling them your dreams, Mercury and Capricorn could very much be like, well, how are you going to do that? And so there can be a dampening energy there. So I think an awareness of, when I'm talking about what I want, when I'm thinking about the things that I want to create, who am I interacting with that is supporting my fear, Capricorn, and who is supporting my expansion? I think that's an important thing to pay attention to. Now, as I mentioned earlier, that the Sun and Mars are traveling together through Sagittarius, and they are at the early degrees of Sagittarius. And around the 30th of November, we're going to see the Sun making a quincunx to Jupiter retrograde. So here's the Sun at 7 degrees, the Libra degree, the Venusian degree. And so while this is happening, Venus is making this conjunction to the South Node, because the Sun is how I project myself out into the world. The Sun is the ego. The Sun also represents the male. And then we have Mars, which is also in quincunx to Jupiter. So this quincunx is a blind spot. It's where things aren't quite jiving. We're not seeing eye to eye, and we're not quite simpatico. Okay, so here's Sagittarius, wide, broad thoughts and concepts, philosophies. And then Taurus is like, what do you have to support that? Jupiter and Taurus, how can you support that? Now, Jupiter is the ruling planet of Sagittarius. But here, when they're not having this conversation, Jupiter in its retrograde at that 7 degrees is really trying to find balance and equilibrium. So I think that's super important. Welcome, Matt. It's so good to see you here. Welcome to the room. Okay. And then we finally see Saturn moving direct and has gotten off that 0 degree of Pisces and is now at that 1st degree. And we're going to see Saturn sort of get more momentum as we move forward while towards the end of the year. And that's pretty much what I think is important for the aspects this week. Again, I did a full moon in Gemini video. So please, if you want to look at that a little more in depthly, check out that video. All right, everybody, let's go on to our readings. We're going to start with our birthdays, Sagittarius, and we'll work our way around the Zodiac. And as we do every week, we're going to pull one tarot card and then do a 4-card spread with my angel deck and then with my Camelot deck. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate you. All right, Sagittarius, this is a nice solar return energy, the Fool. The Fool is an adventurer. The Fool is, on some level, very inspired, so inspired that it doesn't really look where it's going. But there's a lot of adventure. It's also where we see the hero's journey begin through the major arcana. And when we meet the Fool has not been influenced by the human structure yet. The Fool is very much, on some level, could be considered a naive energy. I think of it as a Mars energy because it's a pioneer, it's adventuring, it's all by itself, there's except for the dog. And also it's willing to travel light. And when I say that, it's because the lightness is more reflective of the adventure and the willingness to experience new things versus trying to carry a lot of my story with me. So here we go, Sagittarius. Let's see where this, and the Fool, I want to say this too, the major arcana cards have a great amount of influence. So this week for my Sagittarius rising, moon, sun, and stelliums, I think it's important to start to allow yourself to imagine your world without any restrictions of how you're going to get there or where the resources are or will it even work out. I think I've told you guys I've been going through a situation and now I'm waiting for the process, right? Waiting for the authority, the Capricorn energy within my process to do what it needs to do. And have I kind of been floating back and forth whether or not I'll be successful? Yes, but the majority of me has surrendered. So I want to offer this because there could be a surrender to an adventure, surrender to being a little bit I guess what I want to say for my Sagittarius is having a sort of independent thought versus, and when I mean independent, I mean like, you know what? I know that other people might not support this or might have fears for me if I go out on this adventure, but I'm going to trust my inner knowing and be willingness to go on it. Let's see what the angels have to say. Be interesting to see if communication cards come up because all of a sudden I got this feeling, as a Sagittarius, and we're still in the early degrees of Sagittarius if your birthday is this week, but now we're seeing Mercury going near that galactic center, and maybe part of that adventure is not in the material world, but the adventure is in the connection to the quantum fields, to the meditation, to your inner knowing. Let's see where we're going. I don't know why I pulled the cards as if I do when I'm doing a private reading. I keep them all down. Oh, here we see. Okay, so we have Rochelle is our first angel, following your heart. The second is Yvonne. That's about vulnerability. The third is Archangel Gabriel, and the final is Teresa. Then we have the dog joining Rochelle, the risk card joining Yvonne. We have the wind fairy doubling down with the Archangel Gabriel about communication. And then we have Teresa and the High Priestess. Okay. Hi, Molly. Welcome. Good to see you. Okay. For my Sagittariuses, this combination of Rochelle and the dog feel very much as if they are supporting the Fool, because Rochelle is all about following my heart. The dog is about unconditional love, but more so here, loyalty and sincerity. We see the dog depicted at the bottom of the Fool's feet. And I feel as if here, this is an adventure in connecting with your higher power. Now, you can call your higher power something that sits outside of yourself, but I believe your higher power is your inner voice, that inner knowing that speaks to a language that humans do not respond to. Because here is my risk card in the opportunity, the obstacle, and there is a Vaughn representing a vulnerability. And this is supported by the angels talking about what is your self-talk? What is your process of analysis? How are you going through your assessment? Because I think this is where the Fool comes in again, where I'm actually being aware of where my humanness sits and where my inner voice speaks to a bigger picture, to a bigger experience than most humans would afford. Because if the human can't see the physical structure, where is the money? Where is the building you're going to have? Where is the clients you need? Where is the talent that you have? Are you good enough? Because here in the final position is the High Priestess representing your inner knowing. And here very much is Teresa representing worrying about what other people are thinking. So for me, for my Sagittarius, as you are about to experience your solar return, I think this is allowing your ruling planet, which is retrograde right now, and it's retrograde in those early degrees. I think it's going to be 7, 6, 5 before it actually slows down to go forward again. So when we're looking at the 7th degree, we're looking at that Libra degree. Where am I creating balance for myself, creating from my heart? I also feel like part of the risk is trusting the divine messages. When I first started doing this work, I was so afraid of how people would experience me. Would I be right or would I be wrong? And when I was most quote unquote right, or when people experienced what they thought were predictions, was when I surrendered my ego to the message. I'm like, all right, Spirit, if you put something in my mind, I'm going to be brave enough to let it come out of my mouth. And there were things that I didn't want to say sometimes. There were things that were like, oh no, that sounds a little too inflammatory. And yet Spirit would be like, it's important for you to say that. And when I said certain things, I remember using the word badger one time, and I didn't want to say that word at all. And yet when it came out of my mouth, the client very much responded to that word and it resonated. So the message was much more influential, trusting that inner knowing. So I really want to support my Sagittarius this week, connecting with your guides, your angels, your superpower, which is your oversoul, and trusting those messages that come through, because the ones that feel too airy-fairy might start to reveal themselves as we march forward in 2024. When your ruling planet comes into a conjunction with Uranus, that's going to start in April. Oh boy. It's going to be a year, 2024. All right, let's go on to our Capricorns, rising moons, sun, and stelliums. Welcome, Melissa. It's good to see you here. I'm so excited. We've got 2 people that were able to catch the live today. This is great. I have to say, I've been dragging. I don't know what happened in my personal chart because I didn't look, but I woke up feeling better today than I have in a while. More energetic, more hopeful. I've been doing a little bit of affirmation work, and I've also been drinking some rosemary, clove, cinnamon tea to help my body. Okay, let's go on to our, as I said, Capricorn. Okay, this is a very, very powerful card, and it's Saturn is in Pisces right now. So the 8 of Cups actually represents Saturn in Pisces. When you look at the astrology through the tarot. So here's Saturn making a big decision as this gentleman walks away from what appears to be balanced, but yet it's not fulfilling. Pisces is very dreamy, very whimsical, very compassionate, sometimes to the point of overly empathizing with the more challenging energies. So when Saturn's influence comes into Pisces, it's reminding Pisces that you are in a human experience, and your willingness to, I guess what I want to say is put yourself first, because Capricorn is a dutiful sign. That's the sign we're on, Capricorn rising. So your ruling planet Saturn is represented in this card. And are you putting structure into that which you dream of, that which fills your emotional body? Because if you're not, Saturn is going to compel you to move away from it. And when I say move away from it, it's because Saturn is offering something more rewarding down the line. And the human structure sometimes will say, but this is what you have. A bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. But the person who believes that they can find those two in the bush will prosper. So here, I think this is really important because, again, this card represents where your ruling planet is now traveling through. And as Saturn moves through Pisces, it's going to continue to remind Pisces, are you putting too much? This is the way I want to put it. I almost want to give you a metaphor, like a relationship. So you're in a relationship with somebody who's an alcoholic, okay? And they keep promising they're going to stop drinking. And then they're good for a little while, but then, they lose it and they go back and everything's secular. And here we go again. Here we go again. This is Saturn in Pisces. How many times are you going to go around the mulberry bush before you realize that this isn't working? This isn't fulfilling you. It may look good. It may feel good. Everybody else may agree with it, but it's not working for you. And I think that's super important. Let's get a little detail here on what the subject matter may be, because it's emotional. It's interesting as I play with these cards all the time, and every time I look at them, I see something new. And here I see the greenness of the mountains, and yet there's a dark hue. It's like light green and dark green. And so it makes me feel as if I'm willing to climb a mountain, I will have more sight and things will be flourishing there. Fiona is our first angel, saying, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving, Capricorn. That's being joined by the transformational death card. Akasha, the teacher, is being joined by the perception card. Bridget, looking deeper, is joined by the trust card. And Francesca, which is about visualization. And Capricorn more than likely will visualize the challenges before it will visualize the reward. And now the Raven is being joined. So that's about timing of things. So here, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. This receiving part is starting to more deeply trust the intuitive knowing that is coming through. This is Saturn putting structure into that part of you that is calling forth a broader experience. And I think this is an interior experience, because we see the death card as a 46, which reduces down to a 10, which reduces down to a 1. Everything that we manifest begins with our thoughts. And here is Joshua mentioning that his Saturn is at 11 degrees of Pisces. So this is the master degree of thought and application, because what Akasha is reminding you is that you're being taught about your perception here. And you're being offered, as Pluto's been transiting through your first house, Capricorn, it's been giving you a series of divine disruptions that are fine tuning and honing in where your focus is. Because here in the Angel's Advice, we see the trust card, which is a 47, reducing down to an 11. And Bridget saying, look deeper. The deep is not looking to judge or to criticize, but again, to hone. And to hone if the things that you're experiencing are supporting what is truly important to your emotional well-being. Because here, Francesca says, what do you visualize? And then the Raven is about timing. And when I think about this, it's, do you visualize the future you want? And are you willing to walk towards that? Or are you willing to settle for what has been acceptable to the outside world? When we think about Capricorn on the natural wheel, it's the 10th house. It's the most visible house. So your actions are very visible to those outside of you. And naturally, even though we're talking about Capricorn rising, that's the first house. because what I want to say is that as you stand in leadership for your own dreams and your own desires, I think that becomes something that gets momentum. So it starts on the interior world, which is a little challenging because you're fighting with yourself. But as you birth that into the material world, those around you that see your metamorphosis will then support what you can't see as being supported right now. I hope that made sense. My words. All right, let's go on to our Aquarius, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. All right, Aquarius. We have the King of Swords. Now, in my study of tarot and astrology, this is the King of Aquarius. We have the Queen, which represents the Libra air, and here we see the King representing the Aquarian air. So we have a sense of transformation has taken place. There is a bit of an intellectual influence now in how I view things, how I view my emotional body, how I view my intellectual body, how I view my passions. And there's a sense of ease. You see this with his legs. It's almost as if, while the sword appears to be heavy, there's an ease with how he's holding this sword. So we have Aquarius rising with a tarot card that is sort of indicating this is about taking a leadership role in how you are moving your story forward, allowing your Aquarian energy to be innovative, to be futuristic, to know that your hopes and dreams, because the 11th house naturally rules your hopes and dreams. And as you give life to these innovative ideas and take leadership for your thought process, for your intellectual analysis. Let's see what the angels have to say. Our first angel is Fiona. The second is Vanessa. The third is Caressa. And the final is Astera. You know, as Venus approaches the South Node, while Venus rules Libra and rules Taurus, we are all experiencing this in our charts. And so there could be here all of a sudden this feeling, as I look at this spread, that the egolessness is not about letting go of something, but rather allowing yourself to say, you know what, even though maybe people don't get what I'm doing right now, as I stand for what I want, then other people will get it, because we all want people to support our dreams and our hopes. And I think sometimes inadvertently people actually interrupt them because they get concerned for how we're going to put a roof over our head. And I think sometimes, like when I tell people, like real people, like my family that go to church on Sundays and believe that God is somehow puppeteering our lives, they think I'm in danger. I'm in danger because I'm not. Why would God talk to me, right? I'm in danger because I'm playing with the tarot cards, and yet I feel very supported by Spirit, by God, by Jesus, by the energies that love me. Because I feel like one of the challenges of being Aquarius rising is you always feel a little different. Maybe I'm not from this earth, maybe I'm from somewhere out in space that isn't human. And while we joke about that a little bit, it is part of the Aquarian experience to think ahead of the rest of the pack. And that can be a lonely place, because the angels are saying, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. And we see the High Priestess here. Now I want to go back to Mercury traveling over the galactic center in Sagittarius. And I want to say to my Aquarians, good week to meditate, good week to commune with Spirit, because here Vanessa in your opportunity or obstacle talks about faith or fear. And now I'm thinking we're looking at fear and we're disrupting that fear, and it's being replaced with some sort of awareness of the divine laws of the universe, and that they are actually real laws versus laws we create in the Supreme Court or in our justice system. Because Caressa is saying you're at the end of a life cycle that new happiness awaits. And then we see Merlin here. Merlin creates magic. When people experience Merlin, they're thinking they're experiencing a magical creature, a wizard, okay? But Merlin is the one. So Merlin has mastered the thought process and knows very much that if I'm going to experience something, that my believability and my surrender to the experience, because when I'm anxious about something, my believability is wobbling. Because Astera says to reach for the stars with your dreams and desires and don't compromise. What does Aquarius represent? Astrology, the stars, reaching for something bigger. And here, then we see the queen. The queen is relaxed and receiving. So we have the king mastering his thoughts, knowing that he's gone through transformation and now thinking ahead, thinking forward, looking for at my dreams, but not necessarily trying to figure out what the road is, but understanding the exchange of energy between myself and spirit. I often refer to it as the baton pass, right? I put an idea out there, then I start to get excited about spirit inspiring me into the next action. And that's very much what this is about. Fertility, it's about reception, it's about the female energy. So that's an exciting dynamic. And I want to offer this because, you know, your ruling planet, Uranus, is retrograde in Taurus, and your co-ruling planet is moving forward in Pisces. So I feel like this is, again, about allowing your inspirations, your meditations, your connection with your team, your heavenly hosts, and then this will help ground this into your material world. That's what I think that's about. Okay, let's go on to our Pisces, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Our tarot card is the Chariot. Now, this is very, you know, this is a very synergistic energy for Pisces because it rules Cancer. And it also rules, when you look at the Chariot, it infers movement, and yet there is no movement or action in the card. The cement Chariot actually blocks the base chakra. So this is a card that very much represents a connection through an emotional, through the stars. We see his armor are the crescent moons. We see the polarity of the sphinxes. We also see there's this inference, the square here is, I learned from a podcast that this represents the energy of Saturn, and it's right over the heart chakra. So to me, there's very much sort of this idea of understanding that as Saturn is over my heart chakra and the cement is blocking my fight or flight chakra, that it's about putting structure into trusting my heart and trusting that I am connected to the other side. My victory comes, okay, because this represents victory through an awareness of, am I responding to a fight or flight kind of situation, Pisces, or am I really truly connecting with my team for inspired solutions? Because through that, and I want to emphasize for each one of the signs that meditating this week while Mercury traverses the galactic center, I think is very powerful for getting information, for when I say information, I have to tell you, it doesn't feel like the information is really outside of myself, but rather maybe in a file cabinet within myself that I have not looked at, because I think that that's really important. I think the file cabinet of our experiences is how spirit can more succinctly give us our messages. So I think this is really powerful. Let's go and see what else, because this is an intuitive energy. It's an energy of and I want to offer this for my Pisces, because the sphinxes being the kind of, the opposites on some level, I feel as if also can represent that if you are more focused on having empathy and compassion for yourself as you define yourself as an individual that comes together with other humans, not to lift them up or to empathize with their plight or their challenges, but rather to hold space for their awareness and their expansion, then you become more powerful within your Piscean energy. And I also think that with this Chariot energy representing the Cancer energy, nurturing your intuitive body through creative endeavors. And you don't have to be, a real creative person, meaning you don't have to be a songstress, you don't have to be an artist per se, but allowing your own personal creativity to be a conduit for spirit's messages. When I focus on diamond art or I'm coloring, my mind is so on what I'm doing that I'm actually not busy here. And this could be something that's very powerful for allowing Pisces to get those divine messages that might be interrupted by what they feel they need to do to support other people. Okay, Bridget is our first angel, looking deeper into a situation. Maya is a schooling and education. Grace and Antoinette is about compassion. And Indriel is the light worker. Sometimes when we're overly compassionate to somebody's problems, we're actually giving life to their problems. We're not balancing them. So when I'm really, really pissed off about something, while I want to talk about it, I don't talk about it, or I try to talk about it in broad terms to let the human part of me, vent a little bit, but not kick in the law of attraction where I'm spinning my wheels in the wrong direction. Bridget is being joined by the dog, loyalty and sincerity. Maya is being joined by the raven. Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the disruption card. And Indriel is being joined by the protection card. I want to offer this for my Pisces, because if for some reason you're being overly compassionate to somebody's problems, I don't know if you're helping them. And I don't want you to be callous or feel callous, but holding space for a bigger picture, holding space for a divine inspiration would be really powerful, because here, Bridget's asking you to look deeper into a situation. I can't help it. I know a woman in my life, for all my life, held a maternal energy for me, and she loved to talk about other people's problems with them. She was that compassionate ear that just be like, come on, let's chat about your issues for hours and hours. And it used to really get on my nerves, because it would make me feel like that's going the wrong direction. I feel like this is an important energy to say, maybe it's time for me as a Pisces to allow for a certain amount of expression of the challenging things. But maybe if I'm really standing in a loving energy, I help people understand through Maya's education that, sometimes we pick the bones clean and there's nothing else to do but fly away. I have a real personal challenge when it comes to therapy, because oftentimes, because I've been through a lot of therapy in my life, we talk about what we can't change. The family experience, that it's imprinted, and we could go back and try to dissect it all day long, but all it does is kick in the law of attraction to our problem. So here, true victory comes from understanding the polarity, Pisces. And I can't help but see that the dog is a 19 that reduces down to a 10. Look deeper into what are we speaking of, because the raven is a 10. So here we're seeing this 1, 1. Now we've got a 39, which is not a 1, but this disruption card is about disrupting compassion, when compassion is actually fueling the more challenging side of things, because this ends with a 38, which reduces down to an 11. So in 3 of the positions, we see a thought process being illuminated. Now we have Mercury traveling over the galactic center. This is where you are being protected as a light worker here, when you represent that you don't have to tell someone, I don't want to talk about your problems. But if you're aware that somebody has gotten used to you being their sounding board, and now you realize that that's not really serving anybody, then you can start to take intuitive action. Connect with your guides and your angels and say, you know what? I want to be supporting this person from a higher vibration. So my compassion will not be for what their challenge is, but for their journey to walk out of the challenge, and not really truly engaging in too much conversation. I hope that makes sense. Exactly, Adriana. Everybody that I always like to think of it as a car, right? You need the rear view mirror to back yourself up so you don't hit a pole or a person or anybody, but in proportion, right? The rear view mirror is like this big and the windshield moving forward is this big. So that's kind of how I try to support those that come to see me. Because I could look at my childhood all day long. It ain't going to change it. And it's only going to make me mad. And that's not taking me anywhere. Yeah, Saturn, absolutely. Saturn bring up that history and now we transform it. All right, let's go on to our Aries, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Your tarot card is the Two of Swords. When I first started studying the tarot, all the swords were bad. Whenever you got a sword, you were, something bad was happening. And then as I started to study more diversity within my spiritual journey, I realized that the strife and the struggle come from my thought process. So here we see this card actually represents the moon in Libra. So this woman has to close her eyes in order to find emotional balance and mental balance. Okay. There's a part of her. These swords are so big that you can't even see the tips of them. They burst out of the cards. So the burden that she's carrying is extremely important to her. And yet at the same time, she's being tasked to create a win-win. So let's see. Where are we going with this for our Aries? Because right now we have Eris, the little sister of Mars, traveling with the North Node, okay, which is going to make everybody in their Aries energy feel like I want what I want, and I'm not taking any no for an answer now. And then we have Chiron in Aries, Chiron vacillating between the wound and the, I hate the word healing now because I don't like to think I'm broken. I feel like whatever I'm being tasked with balancing, that's my new word for healing, is serving me. And my opportunity is to see how that disruption, that dark moment, that black spot that hurt me is actually serving to empower me. And I think that's why we see the moon in Libra, because there's an emotional dynamic, but the Libra is going to put a layer of intellectual and almost a disconnect, like trying to look at things fair. Okay. Our first angel is Serena. That's all about money and about serenity. We have Archangel Michael, which is about courage to make changes. Celeste can talk about a new home or a new job, but it's definitely about a new way of thinking. And Adriana is leading you to the answers to your prayers, Aries. Okay. Aries. Serena is being joined by the transformational butterfly. Archangel Michael is being joined by the truth. Celeste is being joined by the risk card. And Adriana is being joined by the king. Okay, so this tarot card is the moon in Libra, which is the opposite sign. It's the 7th house for my Aries rising. And so there's a natural polarity. There's also the nodes going through this. So the South Node in Libra is very much about being egoless to the partnership and creating a win-win, while Aries is ravenous to experience itself as an individual and in many ways to feel a celebration of that. So now we see this is not about money. I think this is about serenity. We think of Aries as the warrior, the harsh one. Mars going through Scorpio wasn't easy, especially, it was traveling so closely with Mercury, and then it caught up with the sun and has been traveling with the sun. So it really feels like with Mercury, there was like war of the words, war in my mind, dark thoughts in my mind. And then as the sun made its conjunction with Mars, the sun sort of eclipsed that Martian energy, but it also tasks and has been tasking Mars, especially going through Sagittarius, to broaden its thought process. So here now we see this transformation. And I think it's about not giving up my power, but the serenity comes from knowing that my intentions will be supported by spirit and those around me as I enter the situation in a more strategic, thoughtful, and balanced way, because Archangel Michael is tasking Aries to have the courage to make the changes. The changes are, I just want to go to war with you and annihilate you and prove that I'm right. And the transformation is, oh, that doesn't work. I know that doesn't work because I'm not happy with the outcome. I'm not happy with myself, and I'm not happy with how other people are. Hence the truth card. So now the truth is, how do I transform myself from a warrior to a peaceful spiritual warrior? And here is Celeste representing that shift in the way I'm thinking and the angel's advice and the risk I'm taking in order to experience that. I personally am an Aries rising with a Taurus moon. In Placidus, my rising sign is at the very last degrees of Aries. So the most of myself is hidden in the 12th house. I also have my South Node in that 12th house, which makes me habitually feel like I'm not being seen or heard. Then I go to my Sun in its fall in Libra, making me feel even more invisible. And that the risk I have to take is that when I get big and Aryan and then Taurusy, it doesn't work for me, even if I'm right. So now Adriana is leading Aries to a new sense of empowerment, a new sense of holding authority, but through a way that is a more serene energy, where you're inspiring people because the hero is coming out instead of just the harsh Martian energy. And I really believe wholeheartedly that when Mars was in Gemini, for all those months, it was like 7 months between 2022 and 2023, if I remember correctly, the dates, was really about Mars re-examining how I interact with others and how I'm, how am I being inspiring, or am I just being, hard on people? And then I want to say this, because Venus going through Leo for 4 months this year, because Venus isn't going to retrograde in 2024. She's the only planet that isn't retrograding. So to me now, this is like sort of accentuating Venus in Leo, because she's now, how am I standing in leadership for my inner child? How am I allowing my creativity to be birthed? Because I bring all this up because I believe that for my Aries rising moon, sun, and stelliums, that you are experiencing something where more balance is coming in, because you're finding this. It's almost as if I want to say to my Aries rising, you suddenly have this awareness of, if someone was talking to me the way I talk to other people, I wouldn't listen to me either. That's how I want to put it. So I'm being more engaging. I'm being more balanced. There was a woman that's been parking next to my parking space, and I don't have a car, but I have clients that I like to have use my parking space. And she pulls in like this. And on Thanksgiving Day, there she was again, and I happened to see her for the first time. I didn't know who it was. And part of me was like, I'm going to tell her to quit parking like that. And then I caught myself, and I was like, excuse me, happy Thanksgiving. My name is Teri. And then I went and just gently asked her to park straight. And I got a wonderful response from her. Normally I would be like, hey, and that's my evolution. All right. Going on to our Taurus, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Woo! We have the Tower. And what if Uranus is not going through your first house right now? Now, I believe this card represents the planet Uranus. I study the tarot and astrology, and some people think Uranus is the fool, and this represents Mars. I have a complete opposite feeling about it. When I see the lightning, Uranus rules lightning. When I see the crown being blown off of this thing, What does Uranus represent? Liberation, liberation from oppression, from the rules. And it turns everything upside down unexpectedly. Now, when I was a younger girl and I was playing with the tarot with my friends who were 20 and 30 something year old, every time I got the tower, somebody was about to leave my life because they were going to get into a relationship. And it was funny because most people always shudder when they see the tower. And I learned to think of it in a very different way. So let's see, where is Taurus going to be liberated? Because Uranus is traveling through your first house and Jupiter, and they're both retrograde, offering an opportunity to reflect and review. So here, let's go back to that analogy of the car and my personal history. Because Taurus does not move easily. Taurus is very connected to its family history, good or bad. And Taurus is sort of the silent one. So it can hold these hurts on the inside and not necessarily reflect them on the outside. And I think that the tower here could be offering a liberation from those things. And this was, I think, one of the greatest gifts through the series of distasteful experiences that I had, that spirit, as I stood more and more in my authentic truth, all of my hurts and all of my challenging experiences became part of how spirit communicated with me and would help me identify other people having those challenges and having those things. And then it became like so ridiculous because my file cabinet is so full of nasty crap that it became a bountiful cornucopia of things that I could benefit from. All right, Taurus, let's see. Our first angel is Desiree. The second is Francesca. The third is Adriana. And the final is Maya. Joining Desiree is the Deer card. Joining Francesca is the Stag. Joining Adriana is the Letting Go card. And joining Maya is the Horse. Okay, I absolutely think that this is going to be a series of epiphanies, okay? A series of like, oh my God, it hit me like lightning, this idea. Because here, I think Desiree, she talks about conditions. And then we have the deer. The deer, traditionally, everybody, oh, you're a deer in the headlights. You're paralyzed, fearful. I feel like this is really representing a journey that you're taking, of identifying maybe places that have up until now stopped you or made you feel, not sure. I'm not sure I want to go that direction. I can't actually see down the road. Because Francesca talks about visualizing what you want versus visualizing the challenges. And the Stag represents, being a little bit stubborn, okay? It can represent leadership, but here, I think it represents that Taurian energy where you're like, well, this is how it's always been and this is how it's always going to be. It's never going to change. It's never going to change. Well, you know what? Spirit is saying, yeah, it is. It's going to change. And I think this is a change for the better, because what it makes me feel like is Taurus starts to recognize, especially Taurus moon. I'm a Taurus moon. And when I chew on the you done me wrong stories, it just drives me crazy, because Adriana is leading you to a greater experience. And I want to offer this because Taurus, you're going to feel this in April, and we're going to feel it for a while. Okay. Because as Jupiter starts to get closer and closer to Uranus, something big is going to change. I mean, it could create an earthquake. It could create, financial things. It could create all sorts of things. But as a person creating their world, their life, this tells me that as you reconcile this fear, as you start to reconcile your personal experiences, you're being led to something that's much greater than what you could have imagined. Because this is the angel of schooling and education, and the horse here is representing my Sagittarian beliefs. So now I've got Jupiter and Uranus all over your spread. I feel as if this is not about villainizing yourself for not knowing something earlier, but rather being like, you know what? My world is going to get turned upside down, not because I'm getting tanked, but because now I'm starting to drive the bus of it. I'm starting to see the ebb and the flow of my thoughts. And I'm starting to understand about that I'm a co-creator with the universe, not just me and some, imaginary thing out there that I can't see, but every person, every experience, every car that goes by me offers me an opportunity. How will I show up? And through that experience, see the ripple effect of what I'm manifesting. Because if you think about Taurus, and Taurus being earthy and being like, well, if it isn't solid, it isn't real. But yet we're starting to realize that we create that being solid by the way we interpret it. So I think that there's a lightning strike coming, and I don't think it's negative. I don't want to be afraid of the tower. I almost feel like if you think about it, these people are being liberated from living in a cold environment that they could not get out of. That looks like a prison to me. So, all right. Let's move on to our Geminis, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. This is your full moon tomorrow. It's going to bring an illumination of some kind. And I really want to emphasize again that Mercury, your ruling planet, is traveling over the galactic center this week. That's at 27 degrees, 16 minutes. Let me check my notes. Yeah, 16 minutes of Sagittarius. And so we have this 3 to 5 degree orb, 3 degrees before, 5 degrees before, and after. So this is really an opportunity to look at how we're thinking and receiving downloads from the universe, or inspired actions, or walking through your everyday world and being a little bit more present to the possibility of messages coming through. And they could come through your television set, through an email, through something that you read in a magazine. It doesn't necessarily have to be a meditation where you're like, oh, got it. All right, let's see your tarot card. It's going to be about stuck money. It's going to be about feeling somehow like you've got to hold on to your resources. The Four of Pentacles represents the sun in Capricorn. And so we see the sun in a sign that is a builder, that represents building, and there's a certain amount of money that's attached to the Saturn energy. Saturn rules the 11th house, co-rules the 11th house, which is an Upachaya house. But this could be where, because this Lord, he's not actually a big royal, but he's a little royal. He has the money, but he's holding on to it awkwardly. Why would he hold on to that coin over his heart with both hands and then stress out his brain having to hold this coin up here? So there's something about worrying about my foundation, worrying about, will I be able to continue with my resources? So let me offer this, because Gemini, for some reason, I know Small isn't here today, but I'm thinking that she is potentially having to move, looking for new places. And, whenever we look at new places, the first thing that hits us is how expensive it is to live anywhere. And yet I want to offer this, because when we connect with Spirit in a very intentional way, Spirit can open a situation that you can't imagine. And this has happened to me 2 or 3 times that I can think of when I talk about my home. It happened here in Laguna 20 years ago when I found a reasonable rent. And it happened for me 20 years prior to that when I lived in Santa Monica in a rent-controlled apartment for 15 years. So I really want to offer that for my Geminis, because as this full moon brings a piece of information, I'm thinking that Spirit might be saying, you need to walk through that in order to feel the reward, because this is how oftentimes Spirit brings us opportunities, but we get scared and we don't walk through them. And then we wonder why we're in the same situation. So let's see. Our first angel is Akasha, the teacher. The second is Grace and Antoinette, about compassion and empathy. The third is Xana, protection. And the final is Archangel Gabriel, all about communications. I think Small has a Pisces moon, Katerina. Pretty sure. Okay. Akasha is being joined by the choice card, the mystery card. Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the raven and timing. Xana is being joined by the earth fairy. And Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the owl. I want to offer this. Every time I've taken a risk to do something that was important for me, to fill my heart, I had to ask myself what I thought about my ability to co-create, because I never would have been able to sit in my apartment 24 hours a day if I didn't on some level believe that what I bring to my clients has a certain amount of value. And as I have believed that, and I asked Spirit to bring the people to me that would be best supported by my perceptions, my teachings, my gifts, and my talents, then Spirit started to bring that. So I don't have to be fabulous for everybody. I just get to be who I am, and those people that align with me will find me. And I think that's important for Gemini in general. Again, Gemini represents this quick movement. Mercury has no moons. So it's focused on information, on details, on quick movement. And here what we get to see is projecting a sense of more leadership about my resources, Gemini. The sun is a leadership. It rules the whole zodiac. Capricorn is a leadership sign. And while this could represent initial fear, it's not saying there is a lack of resources. This is a perception of resources. So Akasha is telling Gemini, I want you to learn something about your choices. And this is not to judge your choices. It's just an awareness that you're living in a human apparatus, and it's pre-designed to operate in a certain way. And so when you're aware of that, then you set an intention for it, you can experience magic. Because I think what Grace and Antoinette is representing is compassion for the way you've been thinking. It isn't about judging yourself. Oh, I should have started that years ago. Because the Raven is not just about magic, it's about timing. And the magic for me is always an alignment. Oh, when I contemplate my Saturn energy, I contemplate it from a believability. Because if I believe I can create something, if I can believe that I can grow something, then I'm willing to go through the ebb and the flow of the gestation process, trusting that the sunshine will show up, trusting that the rain will show up, trusting that I won't get flooded out or too much. Because Xana is offering you protection for your physical experience. And I think that this could be you holding too tightly onto where you have been versus where you can go. Because Archangel Gabriel would very much represent mercurial energy and also insecurities, and giving up those insecurities to Spirit and allowing yourself the privilege of a new story. And then I see the owl, because within every experience, there is an ebb and a flow, a challenge. And that challenge is not necessarily there to stop you, but to empower you. You guys have heard me say so many times that if I had never experienced any challenges, if all my clients thought I was great, if I never got a thumbs down, not that I want thumbs down, I would not know how to persevere through that challenging experience and trust myself. So that's where the owl comes in, because if you experience a dip, and that's what this energy could be, as you trust that all the resources you need will be there for you, then they will start to present themselves, and you'll get that ebb and flow, and you'll feel that piece of information supports you. I also want to say this, because all of a sudden I just noticed that in the background are all these buildings. And if indeed Gemini is looking for a new job or a new place to live, that there is what you want within that city. It's just a matter of allowing yourself the privilege of getting up from where you're stuck and exploring a little bit more. And then Spirit will bring it across your path. I think that's one of the greatest privileges of my personal life path, is Spirit has so many times brought solutions that I could not have ever imagined. And when I really started to trust my emotional and vibrational alignment to my hopes and my dreams was when I started to flourish. Okay. On to our Cancers, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. We have the Three of Wands here. This is the sun in Aries. This is a beautiful card because the sun represents leadership. The sun is also exalted in Aries. And here we see this guy standing over his territory. And while he hasn't gotten everything that he needs, he knows that his ship is coming to the harbor. And all those ships carry everything that he needs to move his story forward. When we see this, when we look at this, we see he's only really holding on to one of the wands. The other two are firmly planted in the ground. So something is there's already something that has been built, and now we're expanding upon that. Let's see where we're going. Because for my Cancers, I think that this opposition you've been experiencing of Pluto could potentially be showing rewards now. Ooh. All right, so our first angel is Seraphina. The second is Archangel Gabriel. The third is Akasha, the teacher, and the final is Aurora. Seraphina is being joined by Merlin. Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the Disruption card. Akasha is being joined by the Cat. And Aurora is being joined by the Wasp. You know, this is an interesting energy for me because the Sun in Aries is such a powerful energy in this card. There's a sense of leadership here. Now, when I think about Pluto in Capricorn opposing Cancer, it also just makes me feel as if the Cancer energy is being asked to step up from the bottom of the zodiac and stand in leadership for itself. And I want to offer it this way because Seraphina talks about a happy family and Merlin is about alchemy, justice, and balance. And I feel as if when we have a Cancer energy that's overly nurturing to other people without taking care of themselves, then we have a bit of a challenge, because those that we nurture, we're starting to create that imbalance, can create resentment on both sides, you know, for the people receiving those loving acts that have an underbelly of obligation attached to them. So I think it's very important for Cancer to create balance in their home environment, in their in how they nurture themselves. The Cancer energy is about nurturing the self. It is a healer. That's a term I like to use, balance. And it's also that intuitive energy. And if there's an intuitive energy that knows that I'm not taking care of me, I'm not lining up with my own personal needs, then I realize that I'm somehow looking outside of myself for that. Because Archangel Gabriel talks about communications, and here we have the Disruption card. And I want to offer this too, because this is about taking leadership. This could be very much that what you want will come to you, but it comes to you because you're standing in leadership for yourself. And you have a new conversation, a new chat. And here is Akasha in the angel's advice, and there's the independent cat. And I think that you're being taught, or you're being offered an opportunity to see how when you take care of you, you put the pressure off of other people to take care of you. And that actually reduces anger and frustration. It eliminates anger and frustration, because Aurora talks about inspiring other people. And this is about anger. And I when it comes to, except for Scorpio, when it comes to Pisces and Cancer, I always have a little trepidation that you love people so much more than you love yourself. And that can be a dampening effect. And here, what we see is as you exert a little bit of quote unquote selfishness, which I don't think is selfish at all, then you start to bring in an energy, a more balanced energy of exchange. And then that kind of more warm fuzzies that you want from other people will actually start to manifest for you. All right. And this could be that Venus conjunct the South Node this week. So wherever that is, let me think. It's obviously a square. Cancer, it's that fourth house of home. I'm trying to think. Seems like it should be so logical to me. Okay, on to our Leos, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Our tarot card is Capricorn, the Devil card. Now, I want to offer this for my Leos. Don't let this card scare you, because this is a card that represents that we don't realize that we are more powerful than we think we are. We see the devil as this big, huge character that's ominous, and yet the devil is not in any way tethering these people to those chains. They could move the chains off right over their heads. So there's something here where Leo is going to get to, I want to offer it this way, because there could be this, the bigger thing could be the fears of some kind. Let me see where we're going. Our first angel is Francesca. The second is Indriel. The third is Opal. And the final is Archangel Uriel. All right, Francesca is being joined by the novice. Indriel's being joined by the swan. Opal's being joined by the restriction card. And Archangel Uriel's being joined by the fire fairy. You know, I kind of want to say this. With my Leos, I wonder if you're frustrated. I wonder if you have been experiencing a sense of injustice or unfairness, or and you feel like you can't escape it in some way, as if, oftentimes when you tell people you're a Leo, you can get a negative reaction, like, you're going to suck all the air out of the room. But I want to offer it this way, because your ninth house is Aries, and that makes Chiron going through Aries, the North Node going through Aries, and Eris all up there in your house of beliefs. And I wonder if there's a little something here where you could potentially be hanging on to something that's happened to you, or something that has affected you in a big way, and it's still holding dominion over your life experience. I have this thing, my dad I associate him with love ya gotta go. And I really feel like my father and the experience that I had with him had a very strong imprint on how I receive love, because I'm not used to anybody staying. So I unconsciously will push for them to leave. I'll show them the worst parts of myself and sort of silently dare them to be able to handle me. And I don't know why I'm putting it this way, but here's Francesca visualizing the negative, what we visualize. And then there's the novice, skill without practice. And I almost want to say that I think that skill without practice is believing you're lovable, believing that even if you roar big and loud, that you're still lovable, because you have been transforming. And we see that here. And are you recognizing that within yourself? Or are you still holding yourself to an old version of yourself? What does Capricorn rule? History and repression and limitation. And you've been working beyond that, because you've been continually focusing in on where you want to go. The swan is moving. It's not sitting on the lake. It's in flight. It's taking off. And right now, in the angel's advice, is a reminder that you're a child of God and that you're loved by source energy. And I want to offer this too, because I really think that the majority of when I say source energy, it feels like there's a part of me in my inner knowing that is connected so intertwined with the divine laws of the universe, that when I'm standing in alignment with that, then I understand where if there's a restriction, if anger comes up, if I find myself in a situation, I look at things broader than I used to. Because Leo, here's Archangel Uriel balancing anger and frustration, and here's creative action and optimism. And I almost feel like one of the hardest chapters, I'm a little more used to it now, but was when I was an angry Aries rising and I didn't know that I was angry. I just thought I was, hurt and victimized by other people. And then as I went into this idea that I'm a co-creator, I was like, well, how the hell did I do that? And then I was mad at myself whenever I was defaulting back to an old version of myself, I would get more mad at myself because I thought I should know better. I should be perfect at everything. So I kind of want to offer this, because Venus is going through Libra right now and hitting that south node. And Venus was traveling through your house, first house, for, quite a bit of time. So if for some reason something comes back around that feels historic and has historically felt limiting, frustrating, then this is an opportunity for you to show up for you in your evolved version. And without this disruption or this challenge or whatever the devil's presenting that could cause frustration, you would not see your evolved version of yourself if you didn't have this experience to manifest a new version, or to see yourself show up differently. Just like I did in the parking lot with that girl in the car. Normally I'm sort of, and then I was like more Libra-like, more engaging, and I had a much more pleasant experience. Okay, on to our Virgos, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Oh, the expansive wheel of fortune. All right, Virgo, here we go. Now the wheel goes up and down, turns around, but the wheel always has the Sphinx at the top, holding the sword of thought. This is where the manifestation comes. This has the energy of Jupiter. It's expansive. We see everything, all the zodiac signs represented here in the four corners. The eagle representing the water element. The eagle is also a co-totem of Scorpio. Let's see where we're going. Where is there potential for expansion for our Virgos? Is it going to be in your money sector? Is it going to be in your belief system? We have Saturn opposing Virgo right now. Saturn is at 1 degree. And this is where, we're experiencing this now for the third time. So there's going to be some sort of opportunity for a reward here when we integrate what Saturn has brought into our awareness through its first 2 sojourns through that 0 to 7 degrees of Pisces. Our first angel is Francesca. What will you visualize? That's coming up a lot. Archangel Gabriel, communication. Mercury is your co-ruling planet. We have Chantal in the angel's advice, and then we have Merlina. Again, I want to offer this idea for mercurial ruled people. Virgo, this would be a great week for you to spend time connecting with your team, your guides, and your angels for clarity. This wheel of fortune represents a Jupiterian energy. Jupiter also rules expansion and the connection to the angelic realm. This could broaden a viewpoint of yourself and how you see yourself. Francesca is being joined by the dragon, very powerful. Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the fire fairy. Chantal is being joined by the deer. And then we have the cat being joined by Merlina. Okay, so we see here with Francesca, we're always looking at what are we focusing in on, right? And I want to offer this because the human brain has been imprinted. It has, from the time you were, popping out of the wound, it was being molded into a human structure. Not what was natural to you. So as you are aware that you have challenging thoughts or dutiful thoughts or obligatory thoughts, again, Virgo, you are the sign of service. You're the sign of mental health, stress. And now the dragon represents coolness. Your power and your strength comes from your ability to recognize, oh, there's that old thought again. Oh, here it comes. And now your opportunity is to literally engage Archangel Gabriel and Mercury, the planet, for you to start thinking more positively, more aligned to your thoughts, that everything is serving what you love. Because I think that this is about gentleness and diplomacy as you move towards something that you love. The deer represents gentleness and Chantal represents love. And I think that this is going back to, I don't think this is intimate love. I think this is self-love. The Wheel of Fortune is a 1, okay? Whenever we're talking about a series of 1s, we're talking about the thoughts. And Archangel Gabriel is talking about communications and thoughts. And Merlina is talking about independence, and that this to me this ends with an opportunity for you to start to think Virgo, a little bit more independently about how you want to walk through your day. And this is an opportunity for that Wheel of Fortune to expand your loving your daily activities versus feeling that I have to do them. I'm very keen on the words get to versus need to or should. When I'm in a get to, I love it. When I'm in a need to or a should, I almost want to back the bus up and recalibrate my vibration. Because when I do something joyfully, it creates expansion and wealth. And when I do something out of duty and obligation, my results are more limited. So I think this is about an awareness of your thought process, not a villainization of it, because the cat is also an 18, which reduces down to a 9. And I think that this is about the culmination of a cycle where you have not had healthy boundaries, where potentially you've been more dutiful to what's expected of you, your practicality, your dependability. And now Merlin is offering magic and balance. So you can have the best of both worlds. That's what I think. Your ruling planet's key this week. So if you can even only spend a few minutes, and I want to offer this too, because, these inspired thoughts can come in the most inconvenient times, when you're driving, when you're in the shower. But if you can have the wherewithal to hang on to that inspired thought and then write it down, because for some reason it may come into play later. It may be like almost like a series of breadcrumbs that's you're being led somewhere through thoughts. Oh, I should give that person a call. I wonder how they're doing. And then you find out that person, there's a new job that they're looking for, or that person has a job available, or an apartment, or I don't know, something different, more aligned to something you love. Okay. On to our Libras, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. Oh, we have the wonderful Four of Wands. The Four of Wands represents Venus in Aries. Now, Venus is not in her best in Aries. She's fiery in Aries. She takes on a more independent role. Okay. And I think this is why she's considered in detriment in Aries, because she's the ruler of Libra. But here, this is a card of celebration, because now I feel as if I'm looking at Venus coming into balance. I'm looking at her understanding that her need for independence, or her getting to be more independent in her way of being, Aries, serves her relationships in a way. And then I also feel like she gets to be celebrated for being a boss girl, or being the master of her own creation in some way. So I sort of want to rewrite that because the nodes going through the Libra Venus axis Libra Aries axis very much plays to more balance for me, where I'm not so dependent on my partnership that actually makes my partner bored with me, because I'm not bringing anything new or inspired into the table. But when I'm in my Aries energy, my Venus is in my Aries energy, then I'm bringing something to the table that feels inspiring, brings more passion into a situation. Let's look Libra. Our first angel is Layla. The second is Astera. The third is Ariel. And the final is Sonia. Layla is being joined by the king. Astera is being joined by the owl. Ariel is being joined by the dragon. And Sonia is being joined by the novice. This is an interesting energy. I really am wanting to emphasize, we're on Libra, by the way, I think, Joshua, if you don't mind putting that up. I want to say this, because I think that this Four of Wands, it's definitely a celebration card. It's definitely a card that is representing money. Venus and Aries suddenly makes me think that the celebration may have something to do with some clue, some information. We've got a full moon coming in tomorrow in Gemini, which rules my everyday activities. There could be something coming through where your connection with spirit brings in a sense of justice, a sense of I almost want to say completion, but I'm not sure things are completed. But there could be like a book. There could be the completion of one chapter before we go on to another one. And for my Libras, I think this makes you feel more secure in your connection to spirit, as if you've been walking through an experiment. Because Astera says to reach for the stars with your dreams and desires, and to expect and don't compromise. And then we have the owl. And I feel like, Libra is always going to go back and forth a little bit. Again, Libra represents the law and represents diplomacy and things coming into balance. Here we see the payoff of Venus and Aries, of being cool, calm, and collected. And then we see Ariel again representing your team. They've taken over. And when I want to offer this is because when I say your team is taken over, it's like, for me, I have put the people that perpetrated imbalance upon me. Now I have put my hands in the banking system. I have put this fraudulent. I've said, look, I want you to investigate this person, and now it's in their hands. And there's nothing that I can do until they come to their conclusion. And what I have come to understand is that maybe my anxiousness to move the story forward, Venus and Aries, to find out I've had my money returned to me, is now giving me an opportunity to experience the ease of trust of spirit. The ease of trust. And it's okay a little bit to go back and forth, because that's part of the process of delineating between the human apparatus is pre-designed to have one reaction, where when I put focused intentional thought, I'm practicing new skills that are aligning us into a situation where we are half human, half spirit. Because here is Sonia and here's the novice, saying that this is me practicing trusting my guides and my angels to facilitate a bigger experience, or to facilitate the outcome I want, or to trust that the outcome I want will be fair and just, and that's why I deserve it. That's what I want to say. All right. Merry holidays to you too, Susie. Oh, all right. Let's go on to our final sign, Scorpio. Rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. And as I say that, I just want to talk a little bit about my Taylor and Travis video, because I had so much fun making that. And I think I'm working on a project for y'all. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. I'm going to stop doing that. But I projected their wedding day as October 13th, 2024. And when I went and I hadn't looked at Taylor's chart. She's a Scorpio rising. That's why I bring this up. And I believe Venus is going to be on her ascendant on that day. And Travis has his Venus at like 26 degrees of Scorpio. So Venus is actually transiting over their Mars and their Venus. So I think it's very exciting. Anyway, Scorpio. Oh, wow. I love this. This is the Mercurial Magician. This is where the Fool actually starts to experience the divine laws of our choices. That which we think of on a consistent basis is made manifest in the material world. So we have all the tools we need to build our dreams. Now, Scorpio rules lots and lots of money. Doesn't rule hundredaires, doesn't rule millionaires. It rules billionaires. It rules the idea that as I become aware of my power, I become aware of my thoughts, and as I trust that power and those thoughts, I transform not only myself, but the world. This is why that little Pluto planet with the big heart in the middle is so powerful. I mean, it sits in the darkest part of our solar system, the furthest away from the sun, and yet it is more powerful than so many of the other planets because of the psychological dynamic of it. All right, here we go. Xana is the angel of protection, Scorpio. Then we have Yvonne, which is all about vulnerability. Daniel, the angel of marriage. And then Isaiah, new things are beginning. We have Xana being joined by the forgiveness card. We have Yvonne being joined by the love card. Daniel being joined by the horse. Wow, wow, wow. And then we have the bear. Okay. I want to say this for my Scorpios. I think you're going to start to tell a new story. And when I say that, it isn't about villainizing yourself up until now, but realizing that what I speak of, I create in my physical world. There's sayings that come in and out of my, let me just move this for a second because the sun is hitting this thing, hitting me in the eye. Okay. When I was first working with people that I didn't know, I used to use be, do, have a lot as a saying. Be is my belief. What do I believe about myself? Because what I believe inspires what I think about myself and what I speak about. And that then inspires what is manifest in my world. That is the magician in a nutshell. So up until now, you could be felt a little brooding, a little stingy, a little, the darker side of Scorpio. It's fine, because now there's going to be some sort of reconciliation that takes place as you are being protected, and not protected from the darkness, but protected energetically for the transformation that you represent. Because here is now the love card and the vulnerability card known as Yvonne. And I want to offer it this way, because now here comes Daniel, the angel of marriage, and the horse. But the angel of Daniel represents my history in relationships, how I viewed myself. And that goes right back to Mercury. I have a story where, my dad always told me I'm just too fiery. I'm too much of a warrior. He used to tell me all the time, you should be a lawyer. All you ever want to do is argue with everybody. Well, it was true, because everybody was feeding me a bunch of BS, dumbing me down, and I wouldn't accept it. Scorpio's never going to accept being dumbed down. You are such a powerful, savory sign. So now, as you learn to use your sword, Mars, your co-ruling planet, and I can't help but think the one looks like a sword. Even his arms kind of, could be like a sword, because here, this is a shift in your belief system. This now feels Sagittarian to me. It feels like I'm starting to see how my history is working for me. And this is being accentuated by the bear and by this angel of Isaiah. New beginnings, the gestation. This is not the completion. And now the bear not only represents your history, it represents the enchantment of storytelling. So you're starting to recognize that if I am telling a story that doesn't serve where I want to live, where I want to be, what I want to experience, do I want to continue to tell that story? I've been doing some weird manifestation work as I fall asleep, and I've just been chanting, I feel happy, I am happy. And I think part of that is because I've been so pissed off lately, and I'm tired of feeling pissed off and focusing in on what isn't working when so much of my life is working. And I feel like my awareness of this old imprint, my history, is not to be villainized. I should have compassion for that as I stretch for bigger ways to recognize how I've created happiness and to take it in. There's a part of us that gets to recognize that the brain is a muscle. So we have a certain amount of control over it, like we do our arms and our legs, but we don't have full control over it because it has an imprint. So the awareness of the imprint is where the control comes in, because as I am aware of it and I have a certain amount of compassion, oh, there's my old imprint. Now, is that thought serving me, or is it just keeping me in the same place? And then we start to see something new happen. All right, I'm excited for that. That's it for this week. I want to thank you, Joshua, for helping me out. My intention is to go back and look through the chat and identify and put in the timestamps, but I can't guarantee I'm going to do that anytime soon. I got a client coming in a half hour, got a client right after that. So if anybody wants to put the timestamps in the comments, I'll love on you. And Small, hopefully, will be back next week. I expect it to be so. And everybody have a lovely week. Enjoy the full moon's illumination. And I want to offer this because as Venus traverses over the South Node, and if you feel just a little bit like your beauty's eroding, your money's eroding, your partnerships are eroding. It's an opportunity to redefine how you enjoy those situations and where, like, do I enjoy where my money comes from? Do I enjoy how I'm participating in my partnerships? Do I give myself permission to enjoy the aging process and to find beauty in all chapters of life? All right, everybody. Love you so much. Thank you again for joining me. I'll see you next Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. We'll be in December, the last stretch of 2023, where a lot of our planets are going to start to station to go direct. Some of those Jupiter will starting to slow its roll down, and we're going to have a Mercury retrograde coming up. So, all right, everybody. Peace out. I'll see you next week.